All right. I think we're going to go. Let's go. Let's keep going. Ready? Okay. Go ahead. Yeah. Good evening. Stay. Happy Valentine's Day. Did anybody get a candy heart? Okay. Students, do not, you know this, right? Don't lose those bags, because we will have a drawing at the conclusion of a really cool presentation this evening. And there will be 3 winners, and it's a big deal. Any business students in the room? Yeah, right. You like money? Hold on to your bags. Hold on to those bags. All right. My name is Paul Barrett. I'm the Dean of the College of Business and Economics. I welcome you to the 3rd of 4 Executive and Residence programs this academic year. With the college's mission of preparing students to be tomorrow's citizen leaders, we cannot think of a better way to help us accomplish this mission than to bring to campus some of the most successful values-based leaders in the country. Tonight's guest speaker is a successful business leader, and her company's DNA is infused with the values and competencies that have literally sustained its growth. We're about to learn of the CEO's real-life experience and how it formed her vision of values in an unyielding approach towards excellence in service. Yes, we're very fortunate to have her with us this evening. Our Executive Residence Series began in the early 1990s, and it continues to be an important program for learning for our students, our faculty, staff, and community partners. With the theme of this year's series, Global Leadership Values, we will be learning more about how one of the greatest social experiments, known as the United States of America, continues to establish organizations that provide valued leadership in Virginia and around the world. Tonight's event is sponsored by Barrett Capital Management, and we thank these gracious sponsors for bringing the most distinguished and influential leaders to Longwood. Our sponsors provide this opportunity so all of us can peek in on our speakers' experiences and their insights on innovation, corporate, social responsibility, and certainly including the protection of the human capital that spans international boundaries. When I think of our speaker this evening, I'm reminded of the remarks made by Hugh Goldthorpe and Bill Gravitt, authors in their book, I've Always Looked Up to Giraffes. The author said, and I quote, "Carbon paper doesn't last very long." Their point is that we can all learn from the statement that carbon paper doesn't last, because when we try to emulate or copy others, like carbon paper, we eventually wear thin and wear out. To underline this lesson, Goldthorpe and Gravitt cited a real-life experience with Dr. Norman Vincent Peale, author of one of the most popular books, The Power of Positive Thinking, who used to write, simply, be yourself. In his sermons, Dr. Peale would state, we are each unique individuals. No 2 of us are alike, and we must use our talents to the best of our abilities. Some of us may have more or less talent than others. That is okay, because what is key in all of this is that we know ourselves, be true to ourselves, admit our limitations, and focus on our strengths. In this manner, we can and we do make a difference. Tonight's guest speaker is a terrific example of an executive who has earned her way up not only the corporate ladder, but the ladder of life, and who has been making a difference every step of the way. Our speaker will share with us tonight her story of being born and raised in a foreign country, of her journey to the United States and to becoming President and CEO of the 2nd largest and one of the most well-respected advertising firms in Virginia. It's called Barber Martin Agency. She has led the company into double-digit growth and has built a company culture on integrity and accountability. No wonder Barber Martin Agency experiences client retention at almost 5 times the industry average. No wonder the agency was named to Inc. magazine's fastest growing companies in America. And no wonder Barber Martin was named just recently, and not the last time, one of the best places to work in Virginia by Virginia Business Magazine. Her recent wins include clients like Intellos Wireless, White House Applesauce, Richmond International Raceway, and there's this little company called Elephant Auto Insurance. And she adds these wins to a client list of brands that include Bassett Furniture, Cato Fashions in southern states, to name only a very few. In accepting the Elephant Insurance account, the one condition our speaker made was that they had to use a real elephant in their ads. You'll understand more about this connection later from her directly. But just like the elephant's ad's image, Barber Martin is strong, reliable, and innovative. And what does innovation look like for an advertising firm? To quote our speaker, quote, "It's not every day you set out to locate an elephant with acting experience." But she did. She found and hired Ty, the elephant that had completed an acting role in Hollywood in the movie Water for Elephants. Our speaker tonight is a global leader who has changed lives and communities for the better. And she is about to share her values-based philosophy with us. I thank her in advance for sharing her story with us this evening. But before our speaker is introduced, I'd like to recognize our financial sponsor for tonight's program. Would you please stand from Barrett Capital Management? We have the CEO, Mr. David Barrett. That's my younger, smaller, less handsome, dumber brother, Dave. Not. He's my brother, but the opposite is true in all other regards. I'd also like to recognize somebody. If you stand briefly, we have with us this evening the Provost of Longwood University, Dr. Ken Perkins. He's my taller, smarter, more handsome boss. All true. I will get that raised, won't I? Okay. I'd also like to recognize the Student Sponsoring Association for tonight's event. Will all the brothers of Delta Sigma Pi please stand? Thank you, future business leaders. Finally, it is my pleasure to present to you the individual who will actually introduce our guest speaker. Ms. Courtney Lovings is a junior at Longwood from Mechanicsville, Virginia, who will be completing the Bachelor of Science in Business Administration degree in a dual concentration of both marketing and management in May of 2014. As the president of Delta Sigma Pi professional fraternity, she has been working hard and smart to manage the meetings and activities of a very active student association. And she has fit this into a schedule that has also included work with the Dean Student Advisory Board, being a corresponding secretary for Alpha Delta Pi sorority. And in her spare time, she has toured prospective students, families, and others around campus as a Longwood ambassador. She has been recognized on the Dean's List and will graduate with an expected 3.63 GPA. Through each of these activities, Courtney has learned and applied her growing leadership and teamwork skills, marking her for a fast-track mobile career upon graduation in her chosen field. Please join me in welcoming to the podium one of our best, Ms. Courtney Lovings.
Thank you, Dean Barrett. That was very nice. Tonight we are pleased to have Ms. Robyn Deyo as a part of our 2012-2013 Executive in Residence series. Ms. Deyo is President and CEO of the Barber Martin Agency, one of the largest and respected advertising agencies in the Mid-Atlantic, serving clients around the globe such as Elephant Auto Insurance, Bassett Furniture, Intellos Wireless, and many more. Ms. Deyo is originally from Zimbabwe, where she discovered her love for the sport of diving. At age 18, she accepted a diving scholarship in the United States at Santa Rosa College, where she trained to become an Olympic diver. After 8 months, this dream suddenly ended after Ms. Deyo had a diving accident that left her injured. But she did not stop there. She pursued and she picked up tennis, where she ended up winning a tennis scholarship at St. Andrews University in North Carolina. After receiving a Bachelor of Arts degree in 1993, Ms. Deyo began her 20-year career in marketing, where she joined the Barber Martin Agency. From 1996 to 2006, she worked her way up to the position of president. From 2006 and under her leadership, the firm has experienced double-digit annual growth. Under Ms. Deyo's leadership, the agency not only withstood the economic downturn, but grew to even greater heights, garnering many notable achievements. Recent awards include Best in Show at the Richmond Show, National Telly Awards, the 2012 Virginia Newspaper Advertising Agency Award, but her proudest award is her company's recognition by Virginia Business Magazine as the best place to work in Virginia. Ms. Deyo currently serves as the director on the board of Prevention Connections, an organization serving youth, young adults, and their families in Virginia. She is a member of the Virginia Council of CEOs and has also served as president of the Richmond chapter of the American Marketing Association, where during her term, the chapter won the Best in Class award. On behalf of the International Fraternity of Delta Sigma Pi and the College of Business and Economics, I introduce Ms. Robyn Deyo.
Thanks, Courtney. Well, I think Courtney said it all. Nothing much to say. No, seriously, Dean Barrett, members and friends of Longwood University, the first thing I'd like to say is thank you. Not only has Longwood given me extraordinary honor, but the weeks of fear and nausea I've experienced at the thought of giving this speech have helped me lose weight. It's a win-win. In truth, this is the first speech I've actually really ever given, and it's something I have feared for as long as I can remember. And I'll tell you why. At age 15, I was diving captain of my high school diving team, and I remember vividly the first school assembly where I had to give my diving report. It was a Monday morning, it was 8:30 a.m., it was a typical African summer day, hot, dry, and sunny. The sun was streaming through the windows of the little auditorium as I made my way up through 300 student and faculty to the stage. My heart was pounding, my legs were shaking, and I looked out at the sea of faces staring at me and I said, I can do this. And one thing we'll talk about today is resolve, the resolve to do something you've never done before, when you're not feeling confident, when you're insecure, you're scared, but you have the courage, and you overcome the fear, and you just do it. And I did it that day. Now, what should have taken me 10 minutes took me about 3. I don't think I've ever talked as fast as I did that morning. But I got through it, and I walked to the stage with a great sense of accomplishment and relief. I was later told, however, that while my lips were moving, not a single sound was coming out of my mouth. So here I am, standing in front of you 27 years later, giving another shot and hoping for a better outcome. So can everybody hear me now? Yes. Good. Last year when Dean Barrett reached out to me and asked if I'd speak to you tonight and share my story with you, I thought, wow, what an incredible opportunity, what a tremendous responsibility. That was until I cast my mind back to the many keynote speakers I've listened to throughout my professional career, and I realized I can't remember a single word from any one of them. So this liberating discovery enables me to proceed tonight without any fear that I might inadvertently misguide you in your careers and in business. Actually, I've racked my heart and mind for what I ought to say to you tonight. And I've asked myself, if I were 22 years younger, what would I want to know? And I've realized that any important lessons that I've learned have been drawn from my personal experiences. And so tonight I share with you my story and the lessons learned from that journey. I'm a product of Africa. I was born and raised in a country called Rhodesia. Now, does anybody know where that is? Okay, good. Yes, the Ghana lady. It's a bit of a trick question because Rhodesia hasn't existed in most of your lifetimes. Rhodesia was its original name until Robert Mugabe came and took over power and renamed the country Zimbabwe in 1980. Rhodesia is in southern Central Africa. It's landlocked and bordered by South Africa to the south, Zambia to the north, Mozambique to the east, and Botswana to the west. My great-great-grandfather, Kingsley Fabridge, was the first European immigrant to settle in Rhodesia. My great-grandmother was the first European baby born in Rhodesia. Rhodesia was for many years known as the gem of Africa, or some might call it the breadbasket of Africa, for its abounding natural resources, huge mineral reserves, outstanding agricultural resources, stunning beauty, amazing wildlife, a wonderful temperate climate, and a happy, cheerful population. In 1923, it became a self-governing country with a sound economy, a good health system, and a good education system. I, however, was born during the most difficult part of Rhodesia's history. At the beginning of its descent towards poverty, hunger, and lawlessness, during what we called the Rhodesian Bush War. And for those of you keeping track, this has nothing to do with George W. Bush. This was a ferocious guerrilla warfare between the two factions of native African nationalists, one backed by the Russians and the other backed by the Chinese, fighting against the Rhodesian government. This war was fought in the bush country of Rhodesia. And for those of you who are unfamiliar with bush country, it can be best described as dramatic countryside, covered with landmines and your usual hazards of Africa. Imagine fighting a war in a country with lions, hippos, rhinos, elephants, cheetahs, poisonous snakes, poisonous spiders, malaria-carrying mosquitoes, and let's not forget landmines, and the onslaught of thousands of bands of army invading the country. This war started in 1965 and was raging 6 years before I was born. At that time, my father had been fighting that war the entire time for 6 years. 6 years in the war, 6 weeks in the war, 6 weeks at home. And he would continue to do so for the first 9 years of my life. So I got used to being without Dad, for not seeing him for weeks or months at a time. And keep in mind, this is before FaceTime, before Skype, before cell phones. So when he was gone, he was simply gone. My mom stayed home and took care of my older brother, my younger brother, and me, as well continuing to work as a travel agent in a country that no longer had a place for anybody to go. During those 6 weeks where Dad was fighting, we as a family would wait in partial and terror and anticipation for his return. And seeing my dad in uniform was a worrying thing, not easily understood, and for me, certainly reinforced that nothing could be taken for granted. I can imagine some of you know what that might be like if you've got friends or family who fought in these recent wars. But you can't imagine what that's like for a child. When my father was away fighting in the war, we in the city with our neighbors and friends would have our own battles against home invasions and attacks on women and children. Feeling safer and more secure in numbers, we would congregate together and bounce from one home to another home to another home. I remember in particular one night when we all congregated at my house. We had several families staying at my house. The women were in one part of the house, of course, and the children were in the other part of the house, and we were playing hide and seek. I chose to hide in my parents' bedroom. But as I walked into their bedroom, I witnessed a fishing pole coming through the window of their bedroom and fishing off the bedding off the bed. The thieves were standing outside their bedroom window, fishing whatever they could hook. Our safe haven had been violated, and an unwelcome guest had invaded our home. And as I look back on my childhood, it was peppered with unwelcome guests. Fear was an extension of our daily lives, and I had to learn to overcome it. What that does to a child in those circumstances changes you. More importantly, I think it defines you. It certainly defined me, and it informs my every decision. Each of you has your own set of circumstances, your own unique childhood experiences that have shaped you, molded you, and prepared you for what's next. Take those experiences. Take what life has handed you and embrace them. Use them to your advantage. Now, from very intense circumstances and what was a horrific life one day became a very normal life the next day. You see, as soon as Robert Mugabe came into power, he immediately united the nation and dispelled any sign of tension of the war immediately. It was almost like somebody had come in and flipped a switch. There was no more terror, no more anticipation. The family was together again. The next 8 years of my life were marked by the installation of a new government with a history of guerrilla warfare, but somehow they did not interfere with our day-to-day lives. While everything from the city name changed to street names to the country name, the fundamental aspects of our day-to-day life did not. The family system remained strong and old-fashioned, with a strong influence of the British and their stiff upper lip. Sorry, Brian. Children were to be seen and not heard, and were encouraged to stand on their own 2 feet. The school standards were high, disciplines were strong, and the schooling system ensured a commitment to hard work and good results. And it helped me generating an understanding that what you start, you finish. Sports and cultural activities were compulsory, and competition and rivalry were ingrained in us at a very early age. As a result, I was very active in sports, and I adopted a strict regime of training and competing from age 10. I was a springboard platform diver, an avid tennis player, a ballet dancer, and a piano student. Often my day would start at 5:30 a.m. with diving, and then school, back to diving at lunchtime, tennis, ballet, diving, and then finally home at 8 or 8:30 at night to do homework. It required dedication and commitment, and off a 10-meter platform, I can say a tremendous amount of courage. It helped develop a good sense of responsibility, not only to my own disciplines, but to my team, to my schools, and to those I played with and against. And it was during this time that I realized my love of the water and my affinity for diving. At age 12, I was selected to dive for Zimbabwe as a springboard platform diver. And I began traveling all over the world to compete on an international level. As I grew older, my personal goals became clearer, and I audaciously set my sights on representing my country, Zimbabwe, as the next 3-meter Olympic diver. I began training 6 hours a day, before, during, and after school, all day Saturday and all day Sunday. It consumed me. It didn't come easy though, and it took a tremendous amount of courage, hard work, and discipline. At age 15, I became the national diving champion in my age group, and I was made diving captain of my high school diving team. At the same time, I was still playing tennis for my high school tennis team, and I was representing Zimbabwe as a national ballet dancer. Now, my accent, it might sound like national belly dancer, but national ballet dancer, 2 very different things. Competition, whether in sports or in business, is an everyday thing. And in order to survive in business, students, you have to be competitive. And don't let anybody fool you into thinking that competition stops in business. We, my agency, we compete every day, and usually against the giants. There will be people smarter than you. There will be people more privileged than you. There will be people better than you. But if you find what you love and you follow that passion, you'll instinctively want to compete, and you'll instinctively work harder, and good things will happen. After competing all over the world in various meets, I began to realize that the standards needed to become an Olympic diver were not really met by staying in Zimbabwe. And like most divers, I would have to travel to America to train with the best if I ever wanted to make an Olympic diving team. So at age 16, I started applying to colleges in the United States with the hope to earn a scholarship. I received scholarships in Boca Raton, Florida, Bakersfield, California, and Santa Rosa, California. And given the reputation of the diving coach, I selected Santa Rosa. Just after my 18th birthday, I left Zimbabwe. I boarded a British Airways Boeing 747 and made my way to America to pursue my dream. I was 18, and looking back now, I can say I was excited but incredibly naive. I didn't give much thought to what I was doing. All I knew of America at this point was a family vacation to Disney World at age 13. It wasn't until I was sitting in that seat on the airplane by myself, with the engines roaring, the plane accelerating down the runway, and lifting into the air, when it hit me. I didn't know anyone or anything about where I was going. And for the first time in my life, I was truly alone. The first 6 months were the most difficult 6 months I've ever experienced, and harder than living through a 10-year war. I was painfully lonely and crying myself to sleep most nights. I had to keep reminding myself why I was there. Keep reminding myself I was there to die for my country. And while my surroundings were not ideal, my goals had not changed. School started, and I trained at least 4 hours a day, working during any spare time that I had. There was little time for friends, which was a blessing because I didn't have any, and little time for studies. But I did what I knew how to do best, and I threw myself into diving, and I trained, and I trained, and I trained. But one afternoon, about 7 months after being in the United States, I was training and trying to learn a reverse 2.5. Now, I don't know, do you know what a reverse 2.5 is? It may be better known as a gainer. So essentially, you walk to the edge of the board, you lift up in the air, you propel your feet in the air, your head goes down, you rotate 2.5 times, head first in the water, but you're coming back towards the board in that dive. And I've been doing this dive in tuck for a number of years. In the tuck position, when you come off the diving board, you come up and you put yourself in a tuck position. Rotate 2.5 times, head first. In this particular dive, when you do a pike, you do it in this position. I used to do this much better, quite honestly, but a few years it happened. So do the head position in pike, and you rotate 2.5 times, head first in the water. Now, I hated gainers. I've hit my head on the board so many times doing this that it's a dive that I feared, but here I went. So as I took the hurdle to the edge of the board, instead of taking it up and doing my dive, I took the dive out, and I hipped my dive, bringing my head towards the board. And with the momentum of the dive, I came back all too quickly and hit the board. My body went limp, I heard a crack, and I plummeted into the water. My teammates dove in and pulled me out. I was dizzy, half conscious, and suffering from a serious concussion. After several visits to the doctor, I learned that the impact of my injury had caused the fusion of 3 vertebrae in my neck. And that while I could play tennis and other sports, the one thing I could not do anymore was dive. The risk of hitting my head against the board or the constant impact of my head hitting the water was too much for my injury to sustain. And any more diving would result in more permanent damage. With just one dive, I had lost my reason for being. I lost my scholarship. And after 8 years of training every single day, after sacrificing time with my friends and my family, and after traveling halfway across the world, I had lost the one chance I had of going to the Olympics. After everything, I lost my scholarship and I had to head home. I was devastated. I was 18, maybe a couple of years younger than you are right now, and I was in my element. I was confident, I was driven, I knew exactly where I was going, what I was going to do. And in that moment, my life changed. Everything I knew, everything I'd wanted was gone. It may be odd to say this now, but in some ways I'm glad that it happened. While I lost the one thing I loved and one thing I truly worked for, I wouldn't be here today because of it. For me, the next thing was unknown. I felt sorry for myself, clearly. I would have to return to Zimbabwe and do I'm not sure what. But before I left America, I decided to stop by North Carolina and visit some friends in college. I had some Zimbabwean friends who were there, and I stopped during their winter break. It was the first time I'd seen friends in 8 months, and it was the first time I had not thought about diving. While I was there, we were playing tennis, a friendly but of course competitive game, if you know me. And the tennis coach happened to notice me, and after we played, she approached me and said, "I'd love to have you on my team." And I said, "Ma'am, I'd love to be on your team, but I don't go to school here." I said, "But if you give me a scholarship, I'll be happy to start in the spring." To my surprise, she gave it to me. And you can imagine my parents' surprise when I called them that afternoon and said I wasn't returning home after all. I learned that opportunity comes in many ways. You just have to be ready for it. Right now you may have a plan, but trust me, things change. They always will. And when they do, look for the opportunity in that moment seize it, adapt, and overcome. For the next 3.5 years, I played varsity tennis, but I also opened my mind to the possibilities that college had offered me. And the one thing that attracted me most was marketing. And with my keen interest in marketing, I sought an internship with a marketing firm. And I will say internships are important. Try to find one paid or unpaid. Be a sponge, learn everything you can. It will help you define your likes, and more importantly, it will help you to define your dislikes. If you find a good one, they will teach you a lot, but it can also open doors for you after college. Mine did. My internship led me to my first job. I began my career in marketing in Greensboro, North Carolina, as a marketing assistant for Tanger outlet centers. After several years there, I made my way to Richmond after following my husband to Richmond, where I started my relentless pursuit for a career in advertising. I felt like my personality and advertising were a great match, competitive and driven. I interviewed with several agencies and I landed a position, a lesser position, as administrative assistant to the CEO of Barber Martin Agency, and that was 17 years ago. I decided to start at the bottom and work my way up. Barber Martin was a rare find. It was one of those places that allows you to explore your wants and needs, allows you to try things and not be perfect yet, and gives you every opportunity to be whatever it is you want to be. I took that opportunity, and I looked for every opportunity to take higher roles and compete against my peers so that I could shine. I was quickly promoted to junior account coordinator, and then to account executive, and then to account supervisor. It's now 2007. Barber Martin is in a downturn, and we're on the brink of losing our largest client, the Virginia Lottery, which represented 50% of our growth, or revenue, sorry. The board of directors realized that we needed to make a change in management. Thinking I could do just as good as anybody else, I threw my name in the hat. And after campaigning for several months, I won the board's confidence, and they elected me to run the company as a newly appointed president and CEO. You can imagine my excitement and my pride. I was 35 years old and running a multi-million-dollar company. But then reality set in, and then came fear. You see, I had no experience running a company, and I wasn't coming in at a very good time. The loss of our biggest client became a reality. In my first 2 weeks on the job, I had to personally lay off 17 people. Imagine what that's like, to sit across the table from 17 people who've been worked with side by side for 10 years. 17 friends whose family members you know, children, husbands, wives. I wasn't prepared for this, for what I had to do. It kept me awake at night. But it was the only way for my company to survive. Driven by fear and inexperience, I made things worse. I was struggling to be the leader that I wanted to be, and I didn't quite know how to turn the ship around. I wasn't sure of myself, let alone who we were as a company. And at the same time, we were entering one of the worst recessions in US history. That combination was deadly. Over the next 1.5 years, we lost clients. I had to let go another 8 employees. And we didn't win a single new business pitch. We were down to half the employees we had when I started in the role. The remaining staff didn't get any raises, and the management team had to take 50% pay cuts. The only upside during this time is that we didn't borrow any money, and we didn't go into debt. And also, I think the most important and also most difficult decision was to let the people go when we needed to let them go, for the greater good of the company. We were broken, and if I could equate it to anything, it would be hospice. You know, the type of care when you're on the cusp of death. My company wasn't just sick, it was one client away from perhaps death itself. And what I feared most was failure, and it seemed like I was failing on an epic scale. That period of my life was humbling. I was waiting for someone or something to come in and help. And I realized that I had to do something. The first thing I realized is we need to stop, step back, and strip away everything that wasn't essential, to take a long, hard look at who we were as a company and decide who it is we wanted to be. We began directing all our energy into what mattered to us most and what we believed in. And the first thing I needed to do was believe in me. Today, Barber Martin is 35 people strong. We're a family, we're a team, and we are passionate. We know exactly who we are, and we do that better than anybody else, or at least we strive to. We haven't lost any clients in almost 4 years. We've won almost every new business pitch that we have pitched. We've experienced 126% growth in the last 3 years. We still borrow no money. We still have no debt. And as you heard earlier, our average client relationship is 5 times that of the industry standard. Our once ailing company I was given leadership of was recently named one of the fastest growing companies in America by Inc. magazine, as you just heard. And what was most important to me was being named one of the best places to work in Virginia. When I reflect on my entire life, I discovered that every single experience has made me into the person I am today. And that it may not be a new idea to you, but it's true. And the knowledge that you can emerge wiser and stronger from setbacks means that you are secure in your ability to survive and to thrive. You will never truly know yourself or the strength of your character until both have been tested by adversity. And for me, this knowledge was my greatest gift. At the end of the day, success is not defined by wins, or money, or status, or title. It is defined by character and by impact. The character you choose to embody, and the impact that you have on the lives of the people that you touch. And in turn, you're not defined by failure. Failure in life is inevitable. And it's impossible to live a life well if you don't fail at something. Unless, of course, you live so cautiously that you may as well not have lived at all. So let me leave you with a few words as you continue your journey. Remember, the first time you try things, you may not always be great at them, but that's okay. The attempt is the important thing. Remember, plans change. Life will throw you curves, and that's okay. Adapt and overcome. And as I've learned through a civil war, through life-changing injuries, and through making heartbreaking decisions, the greatest challenge you will ever face comes from within us, and it's fear. But fear is just another challenge, and every challenge can be overcome. Follow your passion, find what you love, roll with the changes, be competitive, believe in yourself, and strive to live a life of resolve. Thank you.
Any questions for Ms. Deyo? Gotcha, I got a few. Jane.
After your diving accident, what motivated you so much to just keep trying? You went to tennis and you found marketing, but is there some factor that just made you not want to give up and try something else at home?
Yeah, I didn't see much hope or future for me in Zimbabwe, quite honestly. I didn't know at that point what career I wanted to go into. I didn't know much, and I figured if I went back to Zimbabwe, I'd just be a secretary, and that wasn't acceptable.
Question?
You said that shortly after you took over the company in your new role, that you had to fortunately lose a couple major clients. What kept you motivated after that huge downturn, and what helped you keep your employees motivated and you as their new leader?
What kept me motivated was not letting down the remaining 30 people who are still there. It's heartbreaking to let people go, and I felt incredibly responsible for that, so I didn't want to have that happen again. What kept the staff motivated is I think they started to see a vision for who we wanted to be, and they were patient, and most of them have all stuck around with me today. So we've gone through a lot together. We're a team. We work together to pull the company out. I didn't pretend to be a hero or want to be a hero. It was a team effort.
Question? Real well.
You said that one of the most important things to do is to seize opportunities. but it seems opportunities passes each day. What advice to be able to seize those opportunities, to recognize those opportunities?
You know, I think it's funny. I think they happen when you're down. I don't think you notice them as much when things are going well, but when things are going badly, you look for the opportunity and you'll grab hold on it as soon as you see it.
You said you have a staff of about 35. Would you ever expand that to become like would that expand in the future? Or do you 35 people, families?
I've often said to my staff, I think the size I would like to grow to is about 75 people, but no more. I think I like the idea of a small company that's more of a family, and you keep the systems and the protocols in place and not lose the character of the company and the culture. Yes, sorry.
Paul said that you were one of the best places to work, and that's one of the awards that you're the most proud of. Can you share at least 2 or 3 examples of how you help your members integrate their family with their professional life?
You know, often people say, how do you balance work life and home life? And I don't believe it's a balance at all. I think it's an integration. I don't think you can have one and then the other. I think you have to have an integration of both. And a lot of our employees have family members, have children, have doctor's appointments, sporting events, and we strongly encourage their participation and attendance at each of those. You know, advertising, we're a task-driven company. We've got deadlines, we know what's coming up next, and all I ask of my staff is to do your job, manage your deadlines, and deliver on what we promise. And then the rest of it is your time.
Thank you.
Y'all have come up with some really unusual campaign ideas and things like that. Can you talk about your mentality in terms of how you all approach some of these, just kind of getting somebody's attention with a particular ad campaign?
So the first thing we start with, and we talked about some of it today in the classes, is research. We have to get some understanding of the consumer mindset towards the brand, the preference towards the brand, and also where the competition comes into play. So the first thing we'd like to do is understand the landscape, what people think of them, what kind of awareness they have, and how they compare to their competitors. And then from there, we can define a distinct point of difference that we can build our messaging on and our creative on. Because without that, we don't have anything. We have to be distinctly different. I mean, most things are commodity these days, so how do you find that one nugget to make somebody unique, or a company unique?
If I'm right, Mr. Barrett mentioned a teaser, referred to an elephant that could act. Could you expand a bit on that?
So when we decided we were going to use a real elephant for the elephant commercials, we had to start making phone calls around the country to find out what elephants there were, if they needed to be African or Asian. And we found out too that we had to put this elephant in the environment of a home. So this elephant would be in somebody's driveway, would be walking down somebody's street, would be in an office environment. So we couldn't just find any elephant. A zoo elephant wouldn't work. We had to find an elephant that had been trained and had acting experience. And so when you search the country for that, very few pop up. So we found Ty. I mean, there were a few, but Ty was the best and most well trained. And you can imagine people's surprise when we started walking Ty down the street of their neighborhood with no warning. It was interesting.
Other questions? Well, I would say this was quite a learning experience for me, but I knew some of the story before, and you even filled in some details. I think one of the greatest lessons that Ms. Deyo brings is success is not a straight path. It's often kind of a sidestepping path. And it's not real smooth a lot of times in life. It can be very rocky. And I know, because I work with a lot of students, that we have challenges, all of us. But what Ms. Deyo proves in her story is it doesn't matter how rocky it is, there's a place for you to succeed. As you are, who you are, all you have to do is keep going and have the passion. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
We have a gift. We have a couple gifts for you. We have two gifts for you, and then I'm going to ask you to draw some names out of a hat
Okay.
for some very lucky students with Valentine gifts. Okay, where you
Do
go?
that.
On behalf of the International Fraternity of Delta Sigma Pi and the College of Business and Economics, we'd like to thank you for coming to be part of our Executive in Residence series. I know that we all benefited a lot from everything that you shared with us tonight.
Thanks,
so
Courtney.
Thank you.
Thank you very much. Appreciate that. Thank you, everybody.
On behalf of the faculty and staff of the College of Business and Economics here at Longwood University, I have with me a softball that on March 25th, 2012, is Ashley Kramer in the room? No, that's all right. I forgive you, Ashley. Ashley Kramer, as a member of the Lancer women's softball team, hit a home run against DePaul. This is the ball. It's signed for you. And the reason
Wow.
is because what you did tonight for all of us is you hit a home run.
Thank you, Paul, very much. Thank
All
you.
right. Well done. You need to hit a home run 3 more times
3 more times.
for some lucky students.